we had some fascinating stuff coming out of Germany, or actually not Germany. It's actually in Russia. We had a family that decided to take off from Germany to Russia, apparently because of the fact that the country is no longer safe because of the migrant influx, right? So you had a family of quite a large family taking off for Moscow in a kind of a political move, and actually some of the Russian news outlets actually picked up on the story, and they went and filmed them. And I've actually not heard a direct interview over video with anyone from the family yet. Unfortunately, the video was in Russian, and the translation on Google was absolutely horrific. But it's very interesting. I find these stories very, very fascinating because it's indicative, I think, of what potentially might come. We might actually see waves of people starting to leave certain European countries and go to kind of, I guess, safe zones.
Yeah, I definitely think that is a likely possibility. I mean, it's already happening to a certain extent, maybe not specifically to, Eastern Europe and Russia, but you hear all the statistics about people leaving their home countries, Sweden, for example, Britain. I think they're probably going to America and other Western European countries overall. But as things continue to get worse in Europe, as they most likely will before they get better, I do think we are going to see more people heading to Eastern European countries, Hungary, maybe Poland, and then Russia as well, looking for a more wholesome, homogeneous kind of atmosphere there. And it is very interesting that they're going to Russia. And I remember in the article reading that, this family was remarked at how kind the Russian people were to them. They were very sympathetic with their situation. They were very hospitable. And I mean, these people are pretty much living at a
their minibus.
Their minibus, and I think they were kind of staying at some crappy motel as well. But the people there were very nice to them, very sympathetic. And this is all despite, and I mean, let's look at what the Western, I guess, elite are trying to say. They're trying to say that, no, these people coming in, these are your friends, these Syrians, these Iraqis, but the Russians, they're the bad ones.
Yep.
But the fact that this flies completely in their face. They're fleeing the people on screen right now, and they clearly have more in common with the Russians.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem with it, that the people who flee to our European countries now, they usually end up bringing the conditions to us that they tried to flee from, because these conditions are not pertinent to a spot on the map. They're pertinent to the people. I mean, in case of Syria, yes, it's a unique situation because you have kind of a proxy war really going between many different nations fighting it out there. But as we know, many of these other refugees, they come from many other countries, which are actually fairly peaceful. And this is what happened. And one of the things that occurred to me as well is this idea that we might see more of this, where potentially even a Eastern European country is going to become, or offer at some point to become kind of like a host nation for other, at least Western European nations. I remember there was one demonstration out of Latvia. They were running their own kind of protest. This is, I think, over a year ago now. What was interesting to me there is that the kind people of Latvia actually extended a helping hand to us Swedes, and they say, we're ready to welcome Swedish refugees when they will run away from immigrants demolished Stockholm. I thought that was pretty interesting. I think we're going to see more of this, Reinhard.
Absolutely. I think the most likely place for an ethno-state to kind of develop will be somewhere in Eastern Europe. I think as things continue to get bad, some Eastern European leader is just going to decide that the pros outweigh the cons as far as establish, like, publicly and officially establishing it as a state that will accept refugees from all over the West. As far as the pros and cons for that go, I think the pros would be there'd be economic benefits for bringing in a bunch of intelligent, industrious, hardworking white people into their countries. I think the biggest thing that would hold them back from that at this point is kind of the blowback that they would get politically. If Hungary did this, the rest of the EU would completely turn on him, or not him.
Yeah. The country
Hungary overall.
Yeah. Of course.
So I think that's probably a big reason. And the same thing with Putin as well. He's a very shrewd man. He knows that he has to kind of play the game, so to speak. He has to he has to be political and diplomatic, despite the fact that the West wants him dead and wants to blow him up. But I think he knows that doing something like that, making such a proclamation and issuing such an invitation, would invite a bunch of would sow a lot of discord with the West. And he, at this point, he's trying to kind of keep things balanced, as it were.
I'm not suggesting that people in Western Europe should give up and leave leave their countries and leave their nations and not fight or anything like that. But I see it as an incredibly important symbolic act to do, to protest on an international stage, if you will, of saying, we have to leave now because it's getting so bad in our countries. What about the host population? And out of that, we might see something like an Eastern European country open the door more to Western Europeans.